Delayed in space. Those two American cosmonauts on Boeing's Starliner were supposed to come back to Earth weeks ago. NASA and Boeing are going to be updating us soon on their efforts to bring them home. Their test flight was expected to last just over a week, but problems with the capsule's propulsion system and several helium leaks have delayed the return. Dr. Leroy Chiao is a former astronaut and International Space Station commander, joining us. As always, great to have you on to talk about this. Walk us through the technical issues that the spacecraft is facing right now on a safe return home.
Sure. Well, as you know, the spacecraft did launch with a known helium leak, a very small one. NASA and Boeing assessed that leak at the time, and it was less than 1/100th of what could be tolerated. So the decision was made correctly, I believe, to go ahead and launch. Upon approach and docking to the station, 5 of the 28 reaction control system thrusters, the RCS thrusters, failed. But there's enough redundancy, obviously. They were able to safely get docked and on board. And so since that time, NASA and Boeing have been looking at these issues. 4 new helium leaks have cropped up. They're also very small. 4 of the 5 failed thrusters have been re-enabled. But, you know, Boeing and NASA being very conservative, there's no rush to get Sonny and Butch home. They can come back anytime in the Starliner. The Starliner is cleared for return. But what NASA is doing is trying to get as much data as possible before the return, because when it comes back, the part that's having the issues, the service module underneath the capsule, it separates and burns up. So you're not getting that back. And so Boeing and NASA wanting to do as many tests and evaluations as possible, gather as much data as possible before they actually bring that Starliner back. Sonny and Butch, unexpected longer stay, but you know what? Astronauts like being in space. And so they're chipping in, they're helping out, they're consummate professionals. Even though this was unexpected, I think they're doing just fine. And like I said, they could come back at any time if necessary, but just being a little more conservative than, because you can.
Yeah, prudence wins the game, right? Safety first. Having been there, what does their day-to-day look like? Like, what is on their mind? I'm sure they're enjoying time and space, as you mentioned, but what does start to finish day look like for these astronauts as they wait?
Sure. Well, we run the station on Greenwich Mean Time. And so you start in the morning right around 6 a.m. You have a conference with the ground, talk to Houston, talk to Moscow, talk to maybe another control center, depending on what's going on. And then, you have a little bit of time to, get cleaned up, get something to eat for breakfast, and then you go to work. And you've got a timeline. A new timeline comes up every morning. It's, minute scheduled down to the minute. You've got all your activities. Maybe you're doing some experimental work. Maybe you're doing some cleanup. Maybe you're doing some maintenance. You've got built-in breaks. You've got a 2-hour exercise period. You've got meal time broken in for lunch, scheduled in. And then at the end of the day, about 12 hours later, you have a debrief conference with the control centers. And then you kind of have the evenings off, So they're enjoying their time up there with the other crew members, both the Americans and the Russians, and folks from other, the other international astronauts. So they're going through their normal days as they would had they been originally planned to be up there. So I'm sure the planners have accommodated. The planners, I'm sure, we're happy to have a couple extra people to spread the load over. But no doubt they're not sitting idly by.
No, of course not. As far as how long they could stay, and you hope that doesn't come to it, how long could they be up there?
So the Starliner was certified for 45 days in orbit. That's a little bit arbitrary. Of course, Boeing and NASA were able to sharpen their pencils, and I believe they've been certified now for 90 days if necessary. So, NASA hasn't come back with exactly when they're going to bring them back down. I think that depends on those continuing tests they're doing and evaluations on the Starliner. Like I said, they want to try to understand as much as they can about what these problems how they occurred, why they occurred, so that they can fix it for the next flight. In other words, they really want to try to avoid having a recurrence of any of these issues.
Is there a scenario where they would return on a different spacecraft?
That would be extremely unlikely. I could foresee, and this could happen to any vehicle, it doesn't have to be just the Starliner, but say there was a major impact from, say, a micrometeoroid debris into a critical part of the system that, caused a failure. in which case, we saw something we believe happened to a Russian spacecraft. It was a couple of years ago when it was disabled by what was believed to be a strike on their cooling system. If something like that happened, then yes, we would definitely have to figure out and probably send up a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, another one to come and get them. But, that hopefully won't happen. But it could happen to any of the spacecraft on board, not just the Starliner.
We know NASA plans for every possible contingency. We're expecting that update here shortly. Dr. Leroy Chiao, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.